Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Business Post podcast with me, Danny McConnell.
And me, Peter O'Dwyer.
Now, we've had a great range of guests on this podcast over the 18 or 19 weeks that we were doing this. God, can you imagine it's 18, 19 weeks already?
Just 18 weeks into Forever, Danny. So,
Forever, yeah. Okay. But today's guest brings, I suppose, a vast experience in the sort of hospitality, restaurant space, but also bringing... playing a very critical role in bringing American football to Ireland as well. So our guest is Padraic O'Kane, who is, I suppose, the co-founder of the Lingus College Football Classic. He's an EY Entrepreneur of the Year alumni, but I suppose he's chief executive and founder of EHL Experiences, and they're probably more famously known for Fire and Soul restaurants in Dublin and amongst others. Peter, you did the interview, but I suppose for those of us who may not be as familiar with Padraic O'Kane, What can we say about him? What is, like, I suppose, and why is he worthy, I think, of an audience in the Business Post podcast?
Yeah, so I think, as you say there in your introduction, he'd be best known, I think, for Fire and Soul. Fire is the restaurant that is attached to the Mansion House in Dublin, and they also run the Mansion House, the catering there. So I think that's where he has built his reputation over the last 2 decades or so in Ireland. He was in the UK before that. And part of a big hospitality group over there. I
will say, just for declare, like, we at our business, our events group, do an awful lot of business in the Mansion House and the Round Room, and we would work with these people probably a lot.
I don't think we needed to declare that, but very upfront of you. Well done.
Just so you don't get accused of any sort of...
So that was probably his first act, which is still ongoing, and as we touch upon, that's been a really long run for restaurants. Like, there's not too many that stick around for 2 decades. So that's really impressive. His kind of second act is the Lingus Football Classic, which we got into. And his third act, which we also touched on, is they've just bought a very well-known pub on Baggot Street. And he's going to set that up again and has big plans for it. So you could kind of divide his career into those 3 parts.
3 pillars. You did the interview with him, and I suppose, how would you, I suppose, encapsulate, or what would you describe for listeners coming into this podcast? I mean, what can we expect from him? What was he like? What's his approach and what's his style?
He's a people person, which sounds a bit kind of trite, but I mean it in the sense of that's kind of where he's gotten to where he is. He's obviously a good businessman in terms of the nuts and bolts and making the bottom line work. But as he explains in the interview, getting his start, getting his first big break, getting his second big contract, it was all down to the relationships, which is obviously the core and the essence of hospitality. But he, we talk about some of the early contract wins. By right, they probably shouldn't have won them because they were a company with no track record. His own personal track record to that point had not been in Ireland, so he was a bit of an unknown. But by kind of being able to harness those relationships, he won these initial contracts, and then he was able to get going with business. So that's what comes across with him. And this kind of sense of a can-do attitude is a bit kind of cliched again, but even when there's ostensibly a big problem, he's kind of willing to take on the fight, and he'll gather the people around him to fund it or to do whatever. But he kind of sees the solution to the problem, and he's willing to work his way towards it.
And incredibly resilient. I think what I took from the interview as well is that, like, to do all of these things, I'm always amazed about people, entrepreneurs or business owners, that, like, you have to be incredibly resilient. Like, the system really can want to punish you at times, and you have to kind of keep picking yourself up off the ground. But I thought that was a recurring theme through the interview, is that sense of resilience and, by, as you say, wanting to get stuff done. Yeah,
and the idea that you can't just let something rest. Like, the formula that works this year might work next year and the year after, but it probably won't work after that. You have to be constantly reviewing, and one of the most interesting bits of the interview was the way they analyse the data, the way they analyse the trends, the way they see where customers are going in terms of what they want from the restaurants, for example, and how, not quite in real time, but in quick time, they can adapt to where they see the consumer going, which is probably the most interesting bit of the interview, I think.
What struck you, or what, and again, not to tip your hand too much heading into the interview, but, like, what struck you as the area that he's most passionate about, or where did you think, where did you sense his interest most lay?
At the moment, it might be just the pub, because it's the new venture, and it's not just,
and it's the former Larry Murphy's.
We should say the former Larry Murphy's, which has been the Star Bar in more recent years. But he obviously has a bit of a connection. He's not a Dubliner originally, but he's lived there for years and years.
He's a Longford-man, I think, originally.
He's a Longford-man, yeah. So he talks about it being a great pub on the walk out to what would have been Lansdowne at the time. He appreciates the history of it, so he wants to do a good job there. But it's not just that. He wants to prove the concept of this pub and then bring it elsewhere. So, I mean, he's super into the American football as well.
Yeah.
But I think this is the new shiny thing, and he wants to go after it and make a big success. It's the new challenge.
The new challenge. Well, listen, we won't delay you getting into this interview with Padraic O'Kane. Come back to Peter and myself for the post-match analysis after this.
Businessman and restaurateur Padraic O'Kane, welcome to the Business Post podcast.
Delighted to be here.
Now I'm going to try and get all your various titles right here. So, co-founder of Fire and Soul Restaurants, which has been long running for quite a while, CEO of EHL Experiences, and co-founder of the Lingus College Football Classic. Does that cover it?
Events and hospitality, yeah, that covers it well.
Very good. So there's a lot like related but somewhat different businesses there. On any given week or any given day, where at the moment do most of your energies have to go to?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose Fire and the Round Room were 20-year-olds last year. They're a 21-year-old business at this stage, etc. We've expanded smartly, I think, over the years. We've come through the 2009 crash where we were doing great and nearly had to start again, and then we've come through COVID. But we've kind of built it very solidly in relation to everything that I do around me, and with my business partner in the restaurant and my business partner in college football in the States. We don't normally jump in, but that also allowed me to build a great leadership team, which I'm very proud of, which has taken me out of day to day, certainly post COVID, because when you're into businesses like ours, our restaurants are big, they're 7 days a week. If you don't stay on top of data and trends and everything else, you fail. So I'm very much allowed to be a CEO, which is unusual in a hospitality and events business. You're usually completely in the middle of it. Now, that's not saying it around Christmas time. I'm not half in the middle of it. Or college football week when with that team, as a team of six, work full time in college football. It's a massive week what comes into that, and I certainly play my part there. But in the main, I, like any other business, I'm allowed to be a CEO. So
how do you interact then with that core team? Like, how frequent are your check-ins with the general managers of the restaurants, for instance, or with your co-founders in the various businesses?
Yeah, with the team, it's quite disciplined. We as a combined team, we'd meet once a week, and then as individuals, depending on what's going on or where I am, mentoring someone along or taking somebody on a journey. If it's part of we're trying to do something new, or we're about to go on another journey on Baggot Street, and it's taken that from start to finish with a team, and I very much enjoy that, etc. But what sitting with your team will bring up, looking at trends, looking at figures, where potential problems are coming down the line, where we may be missing a trick, what's happening within our competitors. We're very much between the canals, so we watch everything, Dublin orientated, but from events, we're watching everything globally from that, and the Round Room, you're watching everything globally, what happens. So yeah, it's working closely with the team, seeing where the potential issues are the potential opportunities, and driving on them, and that makes up a good part of the week.
I could imagine that keeps you busy. What trends are you seeing in either the hospitality or the event space?
Hospitality is, it's in a real. It's hard to know where exactly we are because of where Ireland is at the moment, where economics is. I guess if I just focus on our two main restaurants in Fire and Soul, these are big units. They have a lot of staff working for them. They be positioned top end casual end of the market, and we're very celebrations and corporate make up a lot of what we do. People dress up to come into Fire and Soul. And it's funny, the trend of this year, we would notice covers are probably down, not probably are down, but average spend is up, which means the top end of the market and spend is there, where we're missing, and it's disappointing to miss it as well. The early bird, the lower spending table, the table that would usually play its part leading up to 6:30 in an even time, are certainly down well in numbers, and that's got a knock on in relation to society and where things are, and I would see that as a concern.
And do you feel like you're missing it as a business, that you're just not nailing that proposition for that particular category, or do you just think it is not there, but it has lessened across the board?
Well, as I said, of the trend, we watch our businesses very closely, and year on 2 years, it is a declining part of the business. And you can be a busy fool in some of them areas and early birds, etc., in relation to how low you will go and so on and so forth. We won't. We'll hold at a certain thing, and we'll give value in the menus. Our early birds include steaks and things like that, whereas a lot don't, and you have to read the small print and so on. I worry about that. It's a clear sign of people not, their disposable income is shrinking, and they're going out less and going out when they need to, and that's concerning. And I think probably for me, it comes down to the cost of business and the cost of living, and one is as important as the other. If cost of business keeps going up, I really feel strong that the government did not think through increasing minimum wages again from January. What I mean by that, those people who are on, and we would have very little people working in this city on minimum wage, certainly in our businesses. But there's a knock-on effect if that's the potato farmer, or that's the fishmonger, or whatever the case may be throughout the country. So all we're doing by doing that is putting the cost of living up further, etc. We've got to focus in on cost of business and bringing it down, which will bring down cost of living. Because every time we increase something like minimum wage, and I'm a big fan of how we look after staff, and how we and autumn enrollment and all these things are really, really important to look at people's future and so on and so forth. But the issue is bring down the cost of business, to bring down the cost of living, and instead we're too focused on bringing it up.
How would you do it? It's very hard to put the genie back in the bottle once you don't unwind minimum wage increases, for instance. Where do you see scope for government and just business to reduce that cost of doing business?
Yeah, I guess, look, it's a combination. We spend so much of our time focused on cost of sale, probably too much time focused on cost of sale from raw materials, and some things are out of our control. But if you look at the data that came out last weekend, where Ireland is positioned in relation to price of housing and price of everything else, and we really feel it in food when we look at what our colleagues in Europe and in the UK are paying, etc. It's ultimately high, so we've got to focus in on it, and it's energy. Surely we can do something with that from how we drive that energy pricing down if we really focus on it, etc. And when you've seen what we were able to do during COVID and how we were able to react so fastly as a combined nation, public and private, and do things, we need that attitude back. We need people from our political leaders, our senior civil servants and the private sector have a part to play there. How do we, get in a room and look at how we done it? We done it during COVID. We done it coming out of the recession in 2011, 2012, when we really doubled down, etc. So we're in a crisis situation. In my view, we need to do it again.
Hospitality is forever a very challenging business, and margins are tight, and the nature of the sector is that businesses come and go pretty quickly. As you said, your two main restaurants are around 21 years now. That is unusual, I think, for such longevity in a sector. First, I suppose, how have you done it? But secondly, is it easier or harder now? Because we've just spoken about some of the challenges now, but obviously there were a lot of challenges 21 years ago. The flip side is, the corporate you mentioned, it's so embedded. Certainly the economy is good now. We have the big multinationals here. I'd imagine you could go a long way to filling your restaurants every evening with just corporate business. So when you take a step back, it's hard. I get that. It's always hard. Is it easier or harder now, do you think?
Oh, there's a question and a half, 2005 versus 2026. It's so different. I think in so many ways, dealing with a issue that's not an issue that your top end line is holding. Compared to when you look at things like when March 2009, when recession really hit Dawson Street, in our case, when you could not control the narrative of sales, no matter who it was, a corporate or a private client. They were just declining, they were not coming out, and you have to let staff go, and you have to cut back in every way you can, and you have to renegotiate rents, and everything goes with that. Where the scenario at the moment is the sales are there, hugely kept up by the American market, more than we know. Our reliance on North America in hospitality and probably just about everything else is absolutely huge. So we need to protect that market so well and double down with it in each way while we develop. I just spent a retreat over in Canada last month, and it's just interesting to see what they're doing the same. They've such a reliance on the United States. They're not going away from that, but they're clearly looking into Europe and beyond. And I know we've made starts there, so we need to do that as a country. Back in hospitality, technology has come on a long way, and that has hugely helped us how we go about doing things. So in 2005 in kitchens, I would have had a full team of qualified chefs. They're no longer available to me now. So we're very much work on systems restaurants. So we had to evolve as we moved along, as labour shortages come in place, etc. And we did that, and we've done that by listening to our customers and bringing along. And, you know, there's still dishes on fires since 2005. There's a prawn dish and a lamb dish that have made it all the way through. And I'd say, and a cheesecake. And if we tried to take any of them off, we'd be in trouble. But there's other things we had to evolve and bring on and keep the customer going and stay with trends that go on. But it's all about, we rebranded our overall company to EHL Experiences last year. And the key word there is experiences. You know, it's no longer about just a piece of food or a piece of service. Or what venue you're in, or how good of a fit out, and it's the overall experience.
I was going to ask you about that. Do customers expect fundamentally something quite different than they would have 20 years ago?
They do, 100%. Their expectation from when they come in the door, I think the whole experience, the journey from booking to when they come in the door, that hello they get to the goodbye they get on the way out. And you can let yourself down with the goodbye on the way down, that, you know, reception at the desk got their head down doing the end of day accounts and didn't salute or didn't say goodbye.
Nothing drives me more mad than when you want to give you my money.
Yes.
And nobody will come and give
absolutely
me the card machine.
Or switch off after the bill is paid or whatever, rather than offering another drink or whatever the case may be. And that's what the experience is. It doesn't stop until the customer's outside the door. And in many cases, it's fallen through with the customer. Was everything okay? Particularly if it was a special occasion or something important to them. And yes, we get it wrong the odd time and we miss something, etc. But it's having the ability to say we got it wrong and follow through on that and follow through with the customer. So certainly our customer understanding of hospitality and what a restaurant is has moved on hugely and greatly, and that's fantastic. We're seeing trends where customers are definitely drinking less but drinking better. What do I mean by that? Post-COVID, it was 2 bottles of wine at a table of 2 or 3. It's now, at 30 euros a bottle. It's now 1 bottle of wine at 65 euros a bottle. Okay. It's 1 gin and tonic before dinner, but they know the gin and the tonic specifically, as opposed to 2 gin and tonics and waffle. So, that the trends are definitely people's ability to, match food with drink and vice versa, where it used to be just food, and a lot of well done food as well, and race to steaks. So we've come on huge leaps and bounds in relation to the culinary experience that we expect in a restaurant or in a banquet in the round room, or indeed what we would do at college football in larger scale events.
Yeah. I was thinking about this in the lead up to chatting to you, that you hear in the airline business all the time, and especially with O'Leary and Ryanair, about ancillary revenues. Getting the bum on the seat is just the first part of it. It's everything else they can sell you. It seems to me that hospitality has probably gone a little bit that way as well. And back to the alcohol, it mightn't be the quantity, but you'll have on the menu maybe the cocktail pre-dinner, you'll have the digestif to go along with the dessert or instead of the dessert. Do you make more of your revenue from what I would call ancillary revenue than you would have previously?
You do, and I think part of the lesson where a lot of people let themselves down, focus on the customer in your restaurant as opposed to the customer who may not come in. If it's a quieter night and you're down with a number of covers, move that spend on, work with them, give the customer experience that they didn't thought. When they're having a dessert, the glass of port, a glass of sweet wine or dessert wine or whatever the case may be. It's bringing them on a journey. Have you ever tried this with that? And that's where staff training and staff experience comes on and brings it through. So yes, it plays a huge part. Where before, and certainly we've come from, we probably never had a real issue in Seoul because we learnt it from fire. Our probably first 10 years was, maximise covers, get them in, get them out. Now it is all about the customer experience. We take a lot less covers. We give a longer period of time. We bring that trend through. We try. We don't always get it on at Christmas time. You can't. Where we see a table that's, enjoying themselves and they want to stay on a little bit further and want to order that extra bottle of wine. Can we move the restaurant around to suit them there or move them to a lounge, etc.? Whereas in the past, it's a blunt, you have to go after 2 hours, whatever. Them days are gone. The amount of competition that's out there, what a customer expects. If they pick one of our restaurants, they kind of expect to stay on as long as they can, providing they're utilising that table and bringing it through. Sometimes it just can't happen on a really busy Saturday night from Metallica
I can imagine.
and so on and so forth. But it's those simple things. But it's all about the customer experience and how we can take that through. And we've got to keep working on it. And when you get it wrong, it's being able to put your hands up and say, we got that wrong, or, let us try better, or deal with it then. What we like to do is try and deal with things there and then, if we get a dish wrong or we get something wrong, to put our hands up and deal with it. Now, someone would say, and I grew up in an environment and came through college where they all say the customer is always right. that's not right. The customer is not always right because certainly at times we've been threatened with TripAdvisor if we don't give a complimentary meal and so on and so forth. Not necessarily the Irish nation, but from other European nations. And we have a very simple way to deal with that. Go for it. If you've enjoyed your meal and you've had it and you've cleared your plates and so on, something was right. But they're few and far between, but it is all about experience.
Are you active just on that in monitoring TripAdvisor, for instance, or Google reviews? Because as a consumer, you can read a lot of good reviews and you kind of go, okay, this sounds okay. You read one, particularly a very bad one, and it might overpower all the good ones you've read. So do you monitor and respond if you get something like that where you can say, just what you said, you cleared all your plates, the issue was whatever it was?
We do, and we're able to trace every table back virtually to where they were. If they've given their name and so on and so forth from there, we're able to take it back and go through the experience, etc. And all we ask for a customer is actually, if we get something wrong, tell us. Give us a chance, and even if you feel you can't do it in the evening because you're with guests, tell us the next morning or drop us an email, see what comes out from there. But there's a couple of keyboard warriors will go straight on and so on. And you can do nothing about that. It's another channel for us in relation to that. Reviews are hugely important because people do, and the odd negative one plays its part. But in the main, if you can keep yourself positive, I think Seoul won an award last year for being in the top 10 in TripAdvisor in Europe, which comes from a lot of hard work, from our customers taking the time out to actually go and do it. And they've moved on so far in words like that with algorithms, etc. Where you can't beat the system anymore. But back in the day, it could have been a different way of doing it. But now it's all about genuine customers, and they'll disregard someone who's had one review or two reviews or negative reviews, and they'll take a positive for someone who's had a lot of reviews and have been about in different restaurants, etc. So, and that has to be welcome. I think that's a great thing. Yeah.
You mentioned your latest venture, which just news broke last week in the Business Post, of you've bought the Star Bar, formerly Larry Murphy's, on Baggot Street, which will be known to a lot of people. What's the grand plan?
Everyone's saying you're becoming a publican. I'm not sure I'm doing that just this stage of my life, etc. But
you are. I mean, maybe you don't want to be, but you are.
It's we see it as hospitality as well in very much ways. We're delighted with it, by the way. I think it's a great building. We've a number of days. We were equally interested in the office space in it. We've grown out of our own office space over in Dawson Street, so it was an opportunity. Our college football team will move over there, and the back of house financial team for the group will move over into offices, which is important. The pub itself, we're doing a little bit of work on it at the moment. We're going to respect that it is Georgian Dublin, and there's a Georgian museum going beside us next year when the ESB finish out their project. So work going on. Have a name. We're going to call it Sally MacLennane's, better known as Sally Mac's.
Oh, very good.
Following a famous Pogue song. It'll be a pub and kitchen. Okay. It'll be all about the quality of pint and comfort food and going back to what a pub should be. And some great staff and some great stories and the pictures on the wall, etc. And look, it's an inspiration, and we'll work on it, and hopefully our customers will tell us in time that we got it right. And it potentially one I've looked for years that potentially doing something abroad. And when I see the state of the Irish pub in a lot of places, in a lot of cities, that the genuineness has gone out of it, etc. There's a potential opportunity that Sally Mac's we may take it abroad and do an Irish pub and kitchen chain. But we'll see, can we get this one right first? And
nail this one first. Okay. So, will it be very stripped back to basics, traditional Irish pub?
It will, yeah. But with a clear nudge with heritage. There's been a pub on that site for nearly 170 years in one coronation or another, and come back, I think, into the 1850s. So we're going to be respectful as Georgian Dublin as well in relation to that, and the street that it's on with Baggot Street and a lot of the old regulars that are there. And we've looked back to different names, etc. But we felt she's ready for a new coronation, albeit it'll be very about yesterday.
Okay. And what will the food offering be like?
So we're working through it at the moment. It'll be fair to say jacket potatoes will play a part with its filling. We're looking at things like beef wings and fish wings as well as chicken wings. And you're going to say, well, what is that? Well, a lot of work has gone on in these beef wings.
A beef wing now is... although I've seen cauliflower wings, so I suppose beef shouldn't be too much of a stretch.
We'll have them too, but it's a particular part of the cut of the rib, the even meat in between the bones that we've identified, and have been working hard on how we develop it and bring it on from there. And we were only down Keogh's Farm a couple of weeks ago looking at which jacket potato we'll work with, and there'll be a lot of Kerrygold in it, and the toppings will be a lot of Irish good produce and brands that we can drive along. But it's very much going to be about comfort food. It's not going to be a gastropub.
Yeah.
It's going to be a pub and kitchen. And there's 2 nice areas in it where people can rent them out, either private or semi-private as well as part of that. And I think in that area of town, that will work quite well. And we see that particularly in our other businesses, private dining has gone to another level in relation to the expectation and how often people wanted to do different things, etc. And we believe in the small celebration, whether it's somebody leaving an office or coming into an office, or it's somebody's big birthday, etc., getting out a group of 20 or 30. So we will focus on that market very much in the area. And there's a lot of good new businesses with Stripe and EY going around the corner, and Department of Health and others, ESB are just beside our doors. So, but it'll be bringing it back to being, traditional, building up a number of locals. It used to be a great pub on the way to the match. There's a fabulous mural on the wall from Owen Walsh that was painted in, I think, 1963 on a lock-in of a Good Friday when he was paid with Bushmills. So we're getting that refurbished at the moment as a mural. So we'll very much respect the building, but make it a good pub and kitchen as well.
Okay. Biggest question of the whole podcast: how much will a pint be?
Do you know what? I don't know what the point will be, but it'll be reasonable.
You're a Longford native, I believe, aren't you?
Yeah,
will you match it to Longford Town?
Exactly a Longford pint price, but it won't be the dearest pint in town, I can assure you of that.
Okay.
In any way, and we'll be very conscious of that. And I think it'll be a pint. Andrew, who's heading up that project for us, has been told to be very conscious of the quality of the pint and Guinness and so on and so forth. So he's working with Guinness at the moment about how we nail that and how we make it the perfect pint. And that's going to be important to our clientele who will come in.
When you talk about potential future plans to bring a brand like that abroad, we won't do your full biography because we could do a couple of podcasts, I think, on your career. But you cut your teeth in the UK. You're part of the Forte Hospitality Group, which is quite a high-end group from what I understand of it. What do you think there's much or anything that you learnt that time a couple of decades ago that still is relevant and informs how you bring a brand abroad in the modern era? Yeah,
funny. I was in Nottingham, I think about 1996 or so, and we opened, it was quite a large 4-star hotel in the centre of Nottingham, and we opened up an Irish bar called Beans. But I remember I learned a lot from, on a regard with the mentor, Sean Sullivan, who was the general manager there at the time. It was about putting a team together that were authentic Irish, getting staff over, etc. Was looking at the product. It wasn't diddly idle, it wasn't about cabbage and stuff like that. He wanted to just bring Dublin to Nottingham, and he did that, and he achieved it and put a lot of effort and time into that. The same pub I was back in about 15 years ago and stuff like that, it was anything but what we built,
right,
etc.
Okay.
So I think if you're going to take a authentic Irish pub abroad, it has to be exactly that. Whatever we do in Dublin, it works. It comes with that. And some chains have worked out really, really successful. Others that went out, made a few bob, sold it on to someone else, and it changed with that, etc. So we're the sort of team that if we don't believe in it ourselves, that we actually can do it from there. And we've been approached many a time to bring Fire and Soul abroad, etc. And we just didn't feel the logistics works for that, etc. Never say never, but I think with something like this, it has the possibilities. But we listen to the clientele in Dublin first, and in around what we do on Baggot Street, and see where we might take that. But if we do it, we'll do it right.
And would it be in the States, presumably?
States, UK, well, particularly when you have the Pogues, if you use a Pogue song, etc.
Bring it down to Tip.
Bring it down to Tip. Well, you never know. I certainly would like to see 2 or 3 more in Ireland. You never know, and that's around population, and so on and so forth. But time. Well, there's a couple more rodeos in me, and that might be one of them.
Okay. When you were with the Forte Group, they have locations all around Europe, quite high end, as I said. Did you get to spend, did you move around those locations? It strikes me as a young man in hospitality in a high end luxury group, there'd be loads of cracking stories. So here's your opportunity to tell at least a few of them. God,
you could be telling all the wrong stories. So 40 hotels, Rocco 40 would have been the biggest hotelier at the time around, and I was fortunate when I left college in Portrush to go over and join his organisation. The difference, I guess, was about every 18 months you get moved, you get promoted. If you're ready for it, etc. You don't get asked, you just do it, and you're happy to do that. And I stayed within the UK doing it, whereas if I'd stayed at home and I was in a local hotel down Longford or the Midlands, etc., I'd probably be still there. And that was a difference in hospitality. I suppose in a lot of careers, going and getting that level of experience, being allowed to move on, they were on top of their trends at the time of what was going on. So it certainly was the backbone of me, who I am today, having that experience and being in the UK and working in big and small units over there, more on the food and beverage side, but I never really had a grow for the accommodation side of it. And by the time they were kind of heading me toward the general manager, who was heading that direction into the room revenue and the accommodation side of it, and I decided to come home before that and kept the route going on food and beverage, and it's worked out okay.
So you came home, set up the business. Was your first major win basically the Mansion House?
Yeah, I came home. I worked for a company called Master Chef's Outdoor Catering and done a 5-year stint with the guys as commercial director, and very much enjoyed that. And it got me good networking here in Ireland. At the time, they would have had most of the race courses. They would have the Aviva Stadium and Croke Park, and doing catering to Dublin Castle and presidents and so on and so on. So the networking was absolutely fantastic. But I kind of made a promise to myself before I was 30, I'd go do my own thing. First big event I won was, God rest him, Henry Moncharles down in Slane. I operated Slane between 2002 and 2009 for Henry and the family, and fantastic memories, some fantastic stories.
As I said, now's the opportunity.
Henry was a special guy, and it was so sad to see him passing last year. But Alex has taken the estate on to a complete another level, and have a big concert coming up in a number of weeks' time, etc. But yeah,
how do you win that? So, like, iconic event. How do you go and win it as a guy with? Sorry, not a guy, but a company with no track record.
Yeah, I guess it was more the event. MCD ran the concert, but it was running the castle on a day-to-day basis for 7 years. Relationships. So I built a relationship. We were down catering in Slane, doing the VIP areas for a number of years before that. I was fortunate to build a relationship with Henry and Iona and the family, and when I decided to go out on my own, he was on my first port of calls, and he gave me the break, and I'll be forever grateful for it. But that came down to, I guess, him seeing my visions, my work attitude, how I do things. He would have the luxury of seeing me run the VIP area for a number of years, etc. And it was a great one to get because it was coming back from the fire. It was the first time it was launched to do weddings, etc. So it was a baptism of fire in other ways to get in. And a number of years later, so 2004, I was fortunate to, again, through good connections and coming from a catering background, I ran the catering for the EU presidency. There was 350 events around the country. And that really got me a stepping stone into another level. Huge project. We took on a lot of consultancy team to drive that and bring that home, and work closely with the Office of Public Works and the different departments. And from there, we were fortunate. We went for a public tender with my now business partner in the restaurants, Larry Murren, to go after the public rooms in the Mansion House. And I remember that interview very well. We went in and told them all we could do with the round room, because the experience of with Taste, Larry's late sister's company, and my own in relation to round room should have been a no-brainer. And then they asked us what you do at the restaurant, and we told them we hadn't a clue. But what we did tell them is we would go, and it's worth this. The location is absolutely fantastic. We will go and ask the people of Dublin what they want. We will go and research around globally what's working, etc., etc. We will open it initially as a restaurant in the Mansion House, and within 7 months we'll have it opened up as a theme. And they believed in us. And funny, the restaurant was found in wildfire in Chicago, the basic concept, and we took it home there with the first wood burning oven coming into Ireland, etc. So we knew we had the right venue, etc. with then, and we had someone who believed in us, and that was part of my early creatives, people who believed in me, winning them initial contracts, because hadn't it been, I started this business with nothing, bar myself and a few bob of savings in the back pocket. But it was having come home, build contacts, get people to believe in me, and I guess thankfully today the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, you can see obviously the value of making those contacts in the first place. You can see how you could leverage them in a situation like Slane. It's kind of surprising in a way that when you're in a public tender and it's the OPW or it's
Dublin
whoever,
City Council,
Dublin City Council, relationships only get you so far there. They have their tick boxes that they have to get through. So even the idea that you didn't fully have worked out what the restaurant would be and you were still able to win it, like, did you go into it with real expectation that you would win it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
100%. We knew what we were bringing to the round room. was to the next level, and they had invested a lot of money in previously in 1999.
Yeah.
Probably hadn't invested the same money in the supper room, so they knew it nearly needed to be, which is now Fire. The old supper room is part of the public rooms at the Mansion House. So they knew they needed an operator that was going to give it energy, time, bring a new concept to it. What was there wasn't working from there, and invest in it at the same time. We took it firstly on a 4-year, 9-month lease. We bet the house on it literally, etc. And thankfully we then renewed another 10 after that, and now we're in a long-term lease relationship with the city with very little restrictions. So, but we built that relationship. We worked with 20 odd Lord Mayors over the years, and great members of the city council. And actually, they're a fantastic partnership. When we were in trouble in 2009 and again with COVID, they come in behind us, and I think we've repaid it in many ways since. And that's what partnership between a landlord and a tenant should be like, and a lot of people actually could learn. And I'm sure there's other stories opposite from a local authority or Dublin City Council, but for our experience from working with them on the public rooms, it's been a real great partnership, and we've invested in both in it in recent years, of how you move it on, and it's the way it should be. What's wrong with a public-private partnership?
You mentioned Larry there, your business partner, CEO of Dawn Farm Foods. Obviously, he was in the public eye massively earlier this year. We won't get into the nuts and bolts of it, but just from being in business with somebody who is taking such brickbats and is in the public eye that much, did that make the start of this year quite difficult to just keep on and doing business?
No, nonetheless, it was a tough period for Larry, but knowing Larry as long as I do, and have no better person to lead Board Bia. Like, I mean, his passion, he's been on Board Bia boards, I think, for over 20 years, as long as I know him, to be fair. What he does with Dawn Farm Foods and for exporting out of Ireland is just phenomenal, those stories, etc. So I think in relation to his ability, we didn't worry about it for as much as 1 second. How contracts are set up, other global foods guys who are based out of Ireland have them the very same way, etc. And no better guy. I'm glad it has resolved itself, and I'm glad Larry's still there leading Board B, because no better guy, and I'm glad the government and other bodies supported him in what he's doing, because for someone who knows him very well, he's a fantastic person, and no better person to be leading Board B at this current time.
To move to the College Classic, so obviously a big part of what you do now, and it's rolling back around in just a couple of months, so you're probably in final stages of prep. So just go back to the genesis a little bit first. There was a few preambles to what we now know to be the Aer Lingus College Classic, and you were involved in the 2012 one, is that right?
Yeah, I guess it goes back to connections, believe it or not. I got a call one day from Martin Naughton, Glendimplex fame, and we've been fortunate for years to be dealing with both Glendimplex and the Naughton family's events around the country, and for everything that they'd done, we built up a great relationship. And Martin said, there's a group of guys coming in from Notre Dame. There's something about a game next year. I'm not sure really what they want, but will you go see them? And I walked into a room and there was 11 of them there. And, after half an hour, they were saying, Padraic, I believe you're going to look after our tailgate and our pep rallies. And I literally said to them, as soon as I Googled what a tailgate and a pep rally is, I'm your man. And literally from there, it was, we went, three of us, Louise Thornton, who's now our director of events, that autumn we went, and Dee Rogers, who's now doing audiovisual in Dublin Castle, we went to South Bend, Indiana for a Notre Dame home game against Navy, as it turned out. I couldn't get over it. I thought I knew college football because I went to St. Mel's and Longford. We won 5 Leinsters.
Slightly different.
an All-Ireland final in Clonus was 5,000 people and a few dogs, etc. And we thought we were amazing, and you can see what college rugby and stuff in the province, etc. But this was just unreal. 80,000 people at a game, another 25,000 people outside tailgating that haven't got tickets. Indiana, South Bend, Indiana is like Longford. I can insult them from there, middle of nowhere. And it just bowled us over. And so we had the fortune on the 2012 game to work on management fees too. We represented Notre Dame and their interests here on behalf of the Knock family and Notre Dame, and we're allowed to build a team and learn it. And just as we come, and the original expectations was there was 12 or 14,000 Notre Dame fans would come. It ended up being 28,000 Notre Dame fans and 7,000 Navy, 35,000 people, the largest movement of Americans outside of wartime ever to leave the United States. And it hit Ireland. No one knew what was going on because it was in the Aviva Stadium. The game was sold out pretty quickly. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks before the game, there was all this Navy and Notre Dame guys ending up in Killarney and Kilkenny and Galway and Belfast, and everyone's going, what is going on? But it was a battle. We did it. It was really successful. We worked closely with Navy on it. And felt there was something there. The team in Croke Park brought a game in 2014. We gave them support in that again through Mr. Nocton asking. And the Croke Park team were going to do a game in 2016 in with Boston College and Georgia Tech, and for reason rightly so, to be fair to them, there was a lack of government support, government subvention with it, and there was a lack of there was a big issue around currency at the time, etc., and fluctuation of it, etc. So they made a decision in February 2015 to bow out, and the game was about to be lost away. It had to have a new owner within a month, and I literally, John Anthony, who's my now business partner, he rang me on a Friday night, says it's gone. And I said, it's not, we're going to do it. And he said, you're mad. I said, I know. And we literally went on a road show that started off with Martin and Neil Nocton on the Monday morning. I remember, telling the lads, I want to do this. What do you need from us, Padraic? I don't know, but are you in? And it was 3 weeks of this. And Martin Murphy, the former stadium director in the Aviva Stadium, was behind it and, made us a great partnership offer. And we managed to get Dublin City Council and Tourism Ireland, Fall to Ireland to make a contribution towards it. And then the magic moment was I went and met Stephen Kavanagh, who was then the CEO of Aer Lingus. And I was 15 minutes into a pitch and Stephen stopped me and he said, I'm in. I said, I haven't even asked you what I want yet. He said, I don't care. I'm in. This is what Ireland needs. This is the connection to Irish America, driving on outside of the Aer Lingus brand, etc. But what this is what all Irish American about, building the relationship and keeping the relationships about. And we've done that game. We broke even. We brushed ourselves down, and we literally gathered the same stakeholders together the year after, or a number of months after. We said, look, if we're serious about this, whatever about Boston College and Notre Dame, if we're going to buy out a team, the likes of Northwesterns and Georgia Techs and different ones we've had here over the years as home teams, and TCU, Texas Christian University this year, we have to buy out their home game, and that's a multi-million transaction because they make a net profit of anything between 2 and 8 million, per game. We then have to move.
And do you buy them out at whatever that is, and then do you give them a slice on top as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we have to move them, and move them means 2 charter planes, it means 2 hotels, it means umpteen buses and logistics that go on.
How much all in will this year's cost?
So where it's gone to now, there's no change out of $6 million before we look at a one cost here in Ireland, and that can vary in the particular game we're doing. It can go far higher than that. But that's sort of the entry line to it.
Where's the breakdown of that cost? Where does it fall? Like who funds it?
So we have, again, through that partnership, it is now an amazing public-private partnership. The private entity takes up to just about 55 to 60%. So we take the majority of the risk, and the rest is made up between our sponsorship, the government, who play a huge part through the Department of Enterprise Tourism, and Enterprise, Peter Burke and his team, and they see it as much more than the game, the much more than the game side of it, and the business side of it, and the economic side of it, and the return on it, and with title sponsors the likes of Aer Lingus and other sponsors like that. So we have a lovely balance as a public-private partnership, while we take the bulk of the risk. We can't do it without the partnerships we have on board, and that's what makes it really cool. And when it comes into town, it took us a few years to get to this point. We just have a separate, much more than a game committee, which Michael McIntyre, the former managing partner of Grant Thornton, co-chairs with Fiona Coyne, who's the deputy secretary in Peter Burke's department, and they're driving on now. How do we get legacy? How do we? While we have some fantastic events, the CEO Ireland US CEO event sits on the Friday. And there's leaders of tomorrow and some academic events and political events. It's incredible. It's bringing that to the next level. How do we put a legacy on it? So the 2 universities that are in this year that have Irish connections, not usually TCU from Fort Worth in Texas and University of North Carolina. How do we, from our point of view, from being selfish, we want to flag them up again to be back in 10 years' time in one coronation or the other, whether together or with different teams. And the reason why that'll happen very easily is they've built that relationship with Ireland. In Boston College and Notre Dame have faculties here. Why can't these schools have faculties? We are the gateway to Europe now. We're the only English-speaking country in Europe. And that Irish-American connection is beyond doubt. It's huge. The trophy's called the Keogh Nocton Trophy. The Nocton after Martin and Carmel. The Keogh after Don Keogh, who was the former chairman and CEO of Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah.
And these 2 guys, when they played a huge part in getting the 2012 game here and convincing Notre Dame and Navy to do it, but then convincing the likes of me and others to take it another level. And the reason being is very simple. They see collegiate sport the way the alumni works, etc., is an unbelievable way to keep the Irish-American connection. We're no longer exporting, please God, we never will like we did in the past. But how do we keep our second, first, third generations connected with Ireland, not just from a personal point of view and knowing your cousins, etc., but from a business perspective and all the challenges that come with that. And as you know, the economics between Ireland and America are absolutely huge, and I think the game plays an important part in that.
I'm conscious of time, so we'll wrap up in a sec. But just, you touched on it there. So TCU, and I mean, UNC is a big name in college football. You can see how bringing Boston College here is a relatively easy sell to the public, and you can get bums on seats. Less so when you have a relatively small college like TCU in American standards, and two that don't have huge Irish links. So, is this year one of the trickier ones to make a commercial success out of?
So most of the years, last year K-State and Iowa State, which travelled,
again, two relatively small,
even less connections with Ireland, etc. The biggest win for the home teams and the away teams then go with it is they all have international programs. So when we were in TCU, they gave us a fact that, and they'd already signed up for the game, 40% of their kids do international placement or go out for a semester. They want to get that to 60%. So they are looking at international opportunities, and no better place than Ireland to connect with. And they identified it, they've seen it. So while ultimate decision comes down to coach, because these guys, we've Bill Belichick in this year, and he only earns $10 million a year, etc. Bill being the former New England coach and multiple Super Bowl winners, which is a big deal. But they play a part on it because they look at fixtures and how disruptive it will be, etc., etc. And coaches we're finding them a lot easier now because we have a lot of coach ambassadors. But the president of the school, the AD of the school, the alumni, the trustees of it like it. They like coming to Ireland. It's week 0. They've got an opportunity to be on TV, very more or less exclusive to themselves, rather than week 1 where there's every game and everything else going on, etc. So I think the business model we put together, being on week 0, allowing the schools to really be visible in America, be visible in Europe, be visible in Ireland, and what we do is part of why the whole thing works.
Just finally, do you see growth in it? I mean, just as you outline it there's a very precise business plan of it's one game a year and all the events around it. Will it just stay as one game a year?
No, the growth comes in a number of ways. We're currently working with all our partners, government and Aer Lingus, to look at the longer term, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll make a long-term announcement in relation to the stability of that and being able to put in games for 5 and 6 years' time, etc. Outside of that, we've TCUs. So on a sporting point of view, UNC are bringing their soccer team this year, one of the most successful. So they'll play Shelburne on the Friday night. Okay. We've had ultimate rugby teams. Next year with Wisconsin and Pitt, they're bringing volleyball with them. Ladies volleyball, 2 of the best teams in the United States coming. So from a sporting, we want to drive it on further and look at potential scholarships. We have a young man kicking in with UNC this year from County Down, Community Abbey.
Incredible.
Adam, who will hopefully open the game this year, and so on and so forth. So there's massive sport on that. We're looking to bring Ivy League, which will be in October time. So the Harvards and the Yales, etc. We'll probably bring that to a Galway, Limerick or Cork. It's smaller numbers, but the profile of those people who come with it. We're looking at a basketball tournament as early as next year in relation to bringing in college background around Thanksgiving. So we see it, there's a far more opportunity. We've built it at one level now. We now want to take it to the other level. But that's where much more than a game comes in with it as well. That business, that economic, that political. We'll have this year over 100 state legislators in town on a programme. One of them is probably could be a former future American vice president or president and have a relationship with Ireland. So everything that goes on around this game, and that's why we come up with the tagline, much more than a game, is so important to Ireland. The economics, yes, last year 140 million again directly into the Irish economy, but indirectly from the TV that's going out there and the events that are going on, that's probably as equally important to Ireland than the direct economic which we throw in each year.
Okay, I'm willing to be a consultant for when you bring Harvard to Limerick. That sounds like a good plan. Great. Padraic O'Kane, thanks a million for coming in. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome back, Peter. That was a very interesting interview, and I think as we hinted in the introduction, you just got this sense from him that he's like, yes, you get knocked down, and you might get knocked down again, but it's just that ability to keep picking yourself up and going again. And as you said also as well, this idea of, the formula that worked yesterday or today is not going to work in 3 years. Like, you've been able to kind of adapt that. resilience, I suppose, to keep, like, whatever about doing that in your 20s and 30s, to still be doing it, 20 or 30 years into a career is really, really interesting.
Yeah, like that kind of the resilience and the personable nature are kind of the must-haves in hospitality.
Yeah.
Like everybody who wants to be successful probably has to have those two things. It's marrying those kind of soft skills with the harder skills of the data analysis, the way they're tracking the the early bird that's falling off at the moment.
Yeah.
You can see the top of the market super strong, the corporates, the higher spenders, that's only getting stronger and stronger, and you can get more revenue out of those people. But the slightly lower spend, the early bird, for example, or the kind of the middle income people, that's starting to wane a bit, and that's where they then have to be able to respond to that. And he says, which is interesting, like, we'll only respond so far. So we can see that that's dropping off. We try to tweak our offering, but there's a level that we won't go under.
Yeah.
Our early bird is our early bird. That's our offering. We won't strip it to such an extent that it's not worth doing. But I thought that was really interesting, not only from how he runs his business and hospitality more broadly, but I kind of feel like the country is hardwired, and I think I speak for myself here as well, of always trying to spot recession indicators.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this canary in the coal mine sort of thing of, well, if the early birds at, upper kind of level restaurants are starting to soften, what does that tell us about people's disposable income? What does that tell us about the economy? So all of that is really interesting. I also liked when he got into, it was my description of them as ancillary revenue, which is this kind of aircraft largely phrase that we hear Ryanair and everybody else talk about. But the idea of getting somebody into your restaurant is kind of just the starting point. You'll give them their 2 or 3 courses, whatever. But what can you give them either side of it? So we were talking about the pre-dinner cocktail, the aperitif at the end, the digestif. And he does say, like, that really has completely changed over the last 20 years or so.
I story there, because when I worked in a bar and a restaurant, the owner used to kick your shins if you moved the people on too fast, because the thing is, you're not necessarily making all the money on the dinner.
Yeah.
It's the wine and it's the after dinner drinks, and if you might encourage them for another bottle or two after dinner, that's where you make your money. So there was never this, like, you would always say, stop rushing them out the door kind of stuff.
But it's been really noticeable, I think, in menus over the last, probably since COVID, that there are far more options. It's largely alcohol related, but as Padraic said, it's less volume, it's more kind of quality, I suppose, that whereas there might have been, as he says, 2 or 3 bottles of wine before at 20, 30 quid, now they'll get one at 65 or something like that. So I just thought all those trends in hospitality are really interesting for somebody who's been able to keep 2 prominent restaurants going for 21 years now at this stage.
What was your assessment then of, I won't quite call it an obsession, but this passion for US football or American football? Like, I mean, you just kind of, what does an Irish guy get out of this, or like, what's in it for him, other than a clear desire to, he obviously has an interest in it?
Well, I think it came to him first that, like, I don't know, did he have a love of American football per se? He had a love of the opportunity that this the college American football game had happened twice, I think, in 2012, 2014, and then 2016 was kind of coming apart. He had a role in 2012, but not as the organizer. 2016 was coming a cropper. And so it was the opportunity to save it that he loved first. But when they went to visit South Bend, Indiana, which, as he says, is the equivalent of Longford, he just couldn't get over that this place in the back of nowhere had 80,000 people crammed into this huge stadium. And I think that's where probably his love of the event and the sport grew. And
the potential, I suppose, as
well.
And
the potential. But initially it was his love of the opportunity.
That is one thing that has always struck me, particularly at the college game in America. You can go to, like, I was going out with a girl in New Orleans, but she was in college in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Huge there. Huge.
Walking into that stadium, 100,000 people. And this is for college. And
it's bigger. Like it's bigger than the NFL. The college game, which people over here I don't think recognise.
But it was mind-boggling to think that, and the sort of the whole ecosystem that a stadium of that size, brings with you, the tailgate parties, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's a way of, I won't say way of life, but it really is.
Kind of is,
phenomenal. And I've seen that when sort of the games have come over here, and you've seen the sort of the city centre been taken over and all this stuff. But I genuinely think, that tied in with, I suppose, the Steelers game at Croke Park last year. There is an appetite here for it. There definitely, like, it is a viable alternative here,
And the concept is kind of proven now. I mean, this is obviously, the college game has been running for quite a long time now. The NFL went off really well. I think from the Americans' point of view, they trust that whichever, different partners for both events, but they trust it can be done here. They trust that they'll get a big showing, like the city council and the government will support it and move stuff around. Some people in Dublin criticise that we do more for the Steelers coming to town than we do for the Dubs being in the All-Ireland, for instance. But leaving that aside, I think the American partners see they can do this and do it well and make a success of it over here, which is interesting.
What was your overall assessment of him? I mean, have you had dealings with him, or have you known him? Or, I mean, what's your overall assessment of...
A bit, but not massively.
Yeah.
I think it's that kind of idea of, like, the American football game is a good example. It was falling apart at the seams. He got a phone call. Yeah. This thing is gone, basically. No, it's not gone. We'll fix it. We'll make it work. And then the ability to go and round up the investment from Dublin City Council and the government and going in to meet Stephen Kavanagh and Lingus and getting that deal over the line. Yeah. He's a guy who gets stuff done, which is good. I thought what was instructive about it was his early days, where he says, if I'd gone and worked in a hotel in the Midlands, I'd probably still be there. It was the idea I had to go to learn my trade. But then he had to come back into a job in Ireland to get the contacts here to complement the experience, and only then could he go launch the business. So
there's very deep psychological, I suppose, offshoots of that statement of having to leave to come back. But I think you're right. I think what I was struck by is that ability to you marry those different attributes or strengths, like to have that personal human touch, whatever it is, which is sort of, it's a soft skill, but it's a very important one, particularly in hospitality, as you say. But to also have those connections that you need in the political nous or the business nous that you need to kind of get deals done. And he seems to have all of those things, in a pretty compelling kind of package.
And he must be a guy that when he's in a negotiation wins people's trust pretty quickly, because his story about when they won the Mansion House contract, and they knew what they wanted to do with that, but not with the restaurant attached, and they still won it. Like, that to me kind of didn't make any business sense. As I said to him, you're dealing with kind of a public procurement where there's a tick box with DCC. Like, on the face of it, that doesn't make any sense, that you openly say, I actually don't know what I'm going to do with the restaurant, but I'll have it sussed out in a couple of months. Yeah. And you still get the contract. So he must be behind closed doors, well able to bring people around to his way of thinking pretty quickly.
Is he the sort of guy you would work for, do you think, in terms of the...
Sorry, is there something I should know?
No, there's not. But I'm just wondering, with some of these entrepreneurs or kind of business owners, you kind of say, that's someone, Jesus, like, he might drive you nuts or might drive you hard, but he's someone you might love to work for because he just, that energy or that passion might be infectious, or you might learn an awful lot from. Or and I've seen it firsthand elsewhere, is that there's the entrepreneur or the business owner who can be a complete and utter nightmare to work for, but just be very successful at the same time.
Yeah, well, like, it seems like from what he said right at the outset, he's not in the thick of it day to day, which, as he says, is unusual for a hospitality CEO. He's lucky that his businesses are successful enough. That gives me the sense of, you wouldn't always be seeing him. He wouldn't always be over your shoulder in a way of, watching what you're doing. He'd probably let you at it. So that's pretty appealing for anybody working under him, that you have your check-ins with the boss when it's needed, but he's not kind of lingering around the place in a way that the head guy shouldn't be, basically. So he kind of knows where to draw that line.
Well, a very, very interesting interview with Padraic O'Kane, and I think great value for money, and I'm delighted that we had him here. Just to remind you again, ladies and gentlemen, before we go, that our Leadership Awards are on November 12th in the Mansion House. We are accepting nominations for chief executives and other leaders across public and private sectors in the country. We are getting nominations. Nominations are arriving in at a good pace, but we are still open for another bit yet. So if you feel like you know someone who's worthy of a nomination, be they a newspaper editor or someone of that ilk, Peter.
Going in anytime now.
I think what we said before, we're precluded from.
I think we should be, yes.
Okay, but if you do have a nomination, we'd love to get your nominations in, and leadership-awards.ie is the address to get them in too. But for me, Daniel McConnell,
and me, Peter O'Dwyer.
Until next week, bye bye for now.